Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning. Okay, so you have done the introduction to trial balance in your previous lesson. So this is the notes in a typed out version. So everything that I have gone through is summarized in these notes. So this is where we stopped. So we have tried to construct a trial balance from the given balances. Okay, so this is how your trial balance should look like. The debit side should equal to the credit side and should have the same amount as I have. Okay, so today we're gonna move on. So we're gonna talk about how inventory is treated in the trial balance. So there are two types of inventories that is available in the business account. So firstly, there is inventory held at the start of an accounting period, which is called the opening inventory. And secondly, we have inventory held at the end of an accounting period, which is called the closing inventory. So how or where can we find these two inventories in the trial balance? So the opening inventory is shown in the trial balance on the debit side. So you will record the opening inventory on the debit column of a trial balance. Meanwhile, the closing inventory will not be included in the calculation of the total for debit and credit columns. Instead, it will just be included as a small note to the trial balance. So for example, this is a trial balance. So in a business account, it will just be written there at the bottom. The closing inventory is blah 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 blah. Okay, so you do not include it in the actual trial balance. Okay, so now we're going to look at how are we going to amend a trial balance that contains errors. So for example, here I have a question. It says the bank account shows an overdraft balance. The following trial balance has been prepared but errors are present. Prepare a corrected trial balance for Mariam as at 31st December 2018. So the trial balance of Mariam has already been done here, but you see the total is not equal. And they have noticed some errors that has been made in the trial balance. So we are going to help Mariam to correct her trial balance. So some tips on how to start when you want to correct a trial balance. Firstly, you check if the bank account is recorded in the correct column. At the top tells you that the bank account shows an overdrawn balance. So remember what I said yesterday, in your previous lesson, when a bank account has an overdraft or is overdrawn, it will be recorded in the credit side. Okay, so let's check here. So we have bank here, so it's still on the debit side, so you should move it to the credit side. So the second tip here is to check for inventory. So at the top here just now, I have mentioned that you only include the opening inventory in your trial balance. So now we're going to check if the inventory included in the trial balance is correct. So here we have the opening inventory, which is at 1st January 2018, and then we also have the closing inventory. Remember what we mentioned? We only include the opening inventory in the calculation of the trial balance. So we have to get rid of that out of your trial balance. Okay? Last but not least, check the rest of the accounts. So now we have to check if the rest of the accounts are recorded on the correct side. So revenue is on the credit side, so that's correct. Purchases on the debit, so that's right. Premises is an asset, so it should be on the debit side. Wages and salary is an expense, so it should be on the debit side. So when you reconstruct your trial balance, when you correct your trial balance, you will record it on the debit side. Trade receivable again is on the debit side. Trade payable is on the credit side. Owner's equity is on the credit side. Drawings is on the debit side. Opening inventory is an asset, so it's on the debit side. Rent is an expense, so it's on the debit side. Sales return is an expense as well, so it should be on the debit side. Purchases returns is a revenue, so it should be on the credit side. Bank loan is a liability, so it should be on the credit side. So you've corrected all the accounts wrongly recorded in the trial balance. So now what we're going to do is reconstruct that trial balance with the balances written in the correct column. Okay, so you can just try this example yourself and check if you can get the same answer. Okay, so let's move on. Let's look at errors that do not affect the trial balance. So sometimes a trial balance may still be balanced, meaning that the debit column may still be equal to the credit column, but there are still errors because some errors cannot be shown through a trial balance. So here are some types of errors that are not affected or are not detected by the trial balance. Firstly, we have the error of commission. Error of commission is when a transaction is placed in the wrong personal account. For example, here a credit sale to Mrs. White, which is a debtor, may be debited to the account of Mrs. Whitney. So they are both debtors. So they are just in the wrong personal account. Okay? The next one is compensating error. Compensating error is when you have two or more errors that cancels out each other. For example, the sales account and purchases account are both overstated by the same amount. So you have purchases, which is debited, and then you have sales, which is credited, but you have increased both sides by the same amount. So in the end, your trial balance will still be the total on the trial balance will still be equal. Next, we have the complete reversal. A transaction is recorded in the correct accounts but on the wrong sides. So for example, a cash sale is debited in the sales account and credited in the cash account, when in fact it should be the other way around. It should be debited in the cash account and credited in the sales account. Next, we have the error of omission. Error of omission is when a transaction is not recorded in the double entry accounts at all. So obviously your debit column will still equal to your credit column. Next, we have error of original entry. Error of original entry is when you recorded the amount incorrectly. So you have the correct account, the correct side, just the incorrect amount. For example, an expense of $23 is recorded incorrectly as $32 in both cash and expense account. So you wrote the wrong amount in both the accounts. So obviously your debit side and your credit side will go up by the same amount, which is 32. So they will still equal. Okay? Last but not least, we have the error of principal. Error of principal is when you record in the wrong type of account. For example, here, the sale of motor van is credited in the sales account when it should be credited in the motor van account. So you have the correct effect, so both account, but it's just that the sale of motor van should not be included in the sales account. Sales account is only for the sale of goods. Okay? So with what you have learned in this video, can you please try activity 20? There is question 1, which is preparing a corrected trial balance. So again, you should refer to the tips that I have here. So step 1, step 2, and step 3, you should apply that in activity 20 for question 1. And question 2 here, it says state the type of error occurring in each of the following transaction. So for each transaction, you tell me what type of error it is. Is it an error of omission, error of principal, error of commission? Okay, so you may do activity 20, and that's all for today. Thank you very much.